In the quiet corner of a sun-drenched village, a young black girl lived with nothing but dreams and courage. Her clothes were torn, her shoes worn thin, but her spirit unbreakable. Every day she passed the mansion on the hill where the billionaire's laughter once echoed before tragedy struck. No one knew that destiny was quietly weaving their stories together, thread by thread. Until one scorching afternoon, the air, split with a mother's scream, the billionaire's baby had fallen into an old, forgotten well. Let me know in the comments, where are you watching this from and what time is it? I love seeing how far this story reaches. Villagers froze in horror, afraid to move, afraid to act, but the girl, barefoot and trembling, didn't think twice. She ran, she leapt, and in that one heartbeat a child of dust and hunger became an angel of light. Because sometimes the poorest hands carry the richest courage, and sometimes the smallest hearts perform the greatest miracles. In a quiet valley wrapped in golden dust, time stood still. The children played barefoot, chasing dreams they couldn't afford. Among them was a little black girl, brave and bright beyond her years. She lived in a shack that whispered stories of hunger and hope. Every morning she looked at the distant mansion, a world so far yet so near. The mansion belonged to a billionaire who once smiled but no longer did. His heart had turned to stone after losing his wife in a tragic fire. Only his baby boy with eyes like sunlight kept him alive. The girl often watched the nanny stroll with the baby near the well, that old broken well, deep, dark, and forgotten by all. The villagers warned their children never to go near it, but fate has a cruel way of circling back to danger. That day the winds carried more than dust. The girl's laughter faded as she noticed the baby near the edge. The nanny was gone for a brief second. Just one fatal mistake. Then came the sound that would freeze every heart, a cry, a splash. The world fell silent, only the echo of fear remained. The villagers screamed but stood frozen, afraid of the deadly drop. No rope, no ladder, no time to think, only seconds to act. And in those seconds the girl made her choice. Barefoot, shaking but fearless, she ran toward the sound. Her small frame cut through the crowd like light through storm. She didn't know if she'd live, but she knew she had to try, because some souls are born not to watch miracles, but to become them. Dust rose as she neared the well, its darkness hungry, endless. She peered down, her breath trembling. A faint cry echoed from below. The baby was alive. Her heart pounded like thunder in her fragile chest. Someone shouted, "Don't jump, you'll die too." But she wasn't listening, only the baby's cry mattered. The sun above burned gold, yet the well below swallowed all light. Her tears mixed with dust as she whispered, "Hold on, little one." Then she wrapped her scarf tight and climbed onto the edge. The crowd gasped as her small feet slipped, but she steadied herself. Her mind was blank, her heart was screaming. One deep breath, one prayer, and she leapt. The fall felt endless, her body slicing through darkness and air. Cold water engulfed her like the arms of death, but through the panic she heard it, the faint sob of the baby. Her hands searched blindly until they found something soft, tiny fingers trembling in her grasp. "Got you," she whispered, voice cracking with tears. The villagers' torches flickered above, but no one dared follow. She held the baby close to her chest, keeping his head above water. Her breath grew weak, her arms ached. Still she refused to let go. In that black well, hope and love clung to each other, and for a moment the world stopped breathing. Word spread like wildfire. The billionaire's baby, the girl jumped in. The mansion gates burst open as guards and servants ran. The billionaire himself, pale, trembling, sprinted through the dust. He reached the well, eyes wide with terror. "Get them out now," he roared. Ropes were thrown, lights lowered, hands trembling in panic. The villagers, who once ignored the girl, now prayed for her. Her name was whispered between sobs and prayers. The father fell to his knees, guilt tearing through his heart. He had spent years building walls of wealth. Now they meant nothing. All that mattered was that small sound, his baby's cry. Inside the well, the girl's strength began to fade. Her fingers slipped, her breath shallow. "Stay awake. Stay with me," she whispered to the baby. Her voice cracked, but her spirit did not. Above, a rescuer shouted, "We see them." A rope dropped through the darkness. Salvation had come. She tied the baby first, ensuring he would rise before her. Her last strength went into pushing him upward. The baby ascended, crying, "Alive!" Cheers erupted, but the rope didn't move again. "Pull again," the billionaire screamed. No answer. Only silence, and the sound of water. When they pulled her out, she was cold and still. The crowd went silent. No one dared breathe. The billionaire rushed forward, holding her fragile body. "Wake up," he begged. "Please, wake up." But her eyes stayed closed, her lips pale. He wept for the girl he'd never known, but now could never forget. In that moment, his heart broke and healed. He realized how small his pain was, next to her courage. She had nothing, yet gave everything. The villagers wept. The nanny sobbed in guilt. The baby reached out his tiny hand, touching her cheek, and as if by miracle, her eyelids fluttered, gasps filled the air. She coughed, trembling, and opened her eyes. The billionaire fell to his knees, crying openly. "You saved my son," he whispered. She smiled weakly. "Every life is worth saving." Those words pierced every soul that heard them. The crowd bowed their heads, not in pity, but in reverence, because that day a poor girl became something divine. Not by money, not by fame, but by love beyond measure. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in molten gold. The billionaire carried her to his mansion, no longer a stranger. Doctors tended to her, wrapping her in warmth and care. Days passed, she healed slowly, her heart still humble. He sat beside her bed every day, whispering thanks. The baby giggled whenever he saw her face. Soon the mansion was filled with laughter again. She became part of the family, not a servant, but a daughter of grace. He built new wells, covered and safe, across the village, and in the center square a statue of her, the girl who jumped. Children placed flowers there every morning. Her courage became legend, her kindness eternal. The billionaire donated half his fortune to save lives in her name. Because her bravery had bought him something money never could, a heart reborn. Whenever it rained, villagers said, "Why, sky is crying gold again." For each drop was a tear of gratitude, and in every reflection they saw her, smiling, free, alive, the girl who had nothing but gave everything, and in doing so taught the world what love truly means. The first night after her recovery, silence filled the grand mansion. The girl lay beneath soft linen sheets, staring at the chandelier's glow. She'd never seen such beauty. It felt like a dream made of stars. Outside, crickets sang, the world had returned to peace, but inside her heart waves of emotion rose and fell. She remembered the darkness of the well, the cold, the fear, yet above all she remembered the warmth of that tiny heartbeat. The baby she'd saved had become a symbol of hope. The billionaire sat by her bed, unable to sleep. He watched her, humbled by the strength of her soul. He had once believed wealth could buy everything until her. Her bravery had bought him back his humanity. "Why did you risk your life?" he asked softly. She smiled faintly, because no one else did. Tears welled in his eyes. Truth had never struck so deep. He gently placed his hand over hers, whispering, "Your family now." For the first time in years he spoke those words from the heart. The girl looked at the ceiling, tears glistening, whispering a prayer. She dreamed of angels that night, wings of gold, voices of peace. In their song she heard her mother's voice say, "You've done well, my child." When morning came, sunlight bathed her face in soft gold. She woke smiling, knowing her purpose had found her. For in saving one life she had saved many hearts, and in giving love she had received something greater, belonging. Days turned to weeks and word spread far and wide. The poor girl's courage became a story whispered in every home. The villagers who once ignored her now greeted her with respect. Children ran up to her, eyes bright, calling her their hero. The old well, once feared, was now covered in flowers and prayers. People began to help each other more. Kindness became their new wealth. The billionaire rebuilt the village, one home at a time, clean water, free schools, and food for every child, and every project carried her name, the girl of the well. She watched it all, quiet and humble, her smile a sunrise. She didn't crave fame, she only wanted hearts to change, and they did, one after another, for compassion, once sparked, spreads like light through darkness. The same villagers who had once turned away from the poor now gave bread to the hungry and shelter to the weak. Her story had awakened their sleeping souls. The world beyond the valley soon heard of her, too. News cameras arrived, reporters calling her a miracle. But she stayed grounded, whispering, "It was never me, it was love." And those words echoed louder than any applause. For the greatest heroes never seek attention, they seek humanity. And she had become its truest face. The billionaire, once broken, found himself alive again. He began to smile, not the smile of wealth, but of gratitude. Every time he saw the girl with his son, he saw his late wife in her. Not her face, but her spirit, gentle, brave, pure. He often sat by the window, watching them play in the garden. The laughter of the child and the girl healed old wounds. He realized that all his gold, all his power, meant nothing without love. So he decided to change everything. He transferred part of his estate into her name, not as charity, but honor. She refused at first, tears in her eyes. "I don't want your money," he smiled softly. "Then let it be your promise, he to help others," she agreed. And together they began a new mission. They built wells across villages where children still drank from mud. They funded homes for the homeless, schools for the forgotten. Every act was born from that single leap into darkness. And with every life saved, her heart grew lighter. The billionaire's son called her sister. His first word after Papa, the man who once lived in silence now sang through kindness. He no longer feared loss, because he'd found meaning, and the girl who once had nothing now carried the richest legacy, not of wealth, but of love that outlived every storm. One bright morning the village awoke to church bells and cheers. It was the day of her honor, a ceremony for the girl who saved hope. Flags waved, flowers fell, and children danced barefoot in joy. The billionaire stood beside her, proud and tearful. Reporters gathered, but she didn't care for cameras. She cared only for the people, their smiles, their warmth. When she stepped onto the stage, the crowd went silent. Her voice was small, but her words carried weight beyond gold. "I was once invisible," she began softly, "but love saw me, and it taught me to see others." A hush fell, heart swelling with emotion. She looked at the billionaire's son, now healthy and laughing. "And if a girl like me could make a difference," she said, "then anyone can, if they just choose love." The crowd erupted into tears and applause. The billionaire placed a medal around her neck, solid gold, shaped like a heart. The villagers chanted her name, their hero, their light. That day the world stood still when I, not for power, not for fame, but for one simple truth: love can rewrite destiny. And as the sky turned crimson and gold, she smiled, knowing her story had become something eternal. In a world blinded by wealth, one barefoot girl showed what true riches mean. She had no gold, no title, no reason to be remembered, yet the world will never forget her. Because courage does not come from comfort, it comes from compassion. She leapt into darkness not to be seen, but to save a life unseen, and in doing so she illuminated the hearts of thousands. Her hands were small, but her spirit moved mountains. Her heart was poor, but her love made empires bow. The billionaire learned that money can build walls, but love breaks them. The villagers learned that kindness is the greatest inheritance, and the world learned that heroes are not born. They are made by love. The girl who, once had nothing became the reason so many believed. Again, her legacy was not written in gold, but in gratitude. For when one heart dares to love without limits, even the darkest well can reflect the light of heaven. Because true wealth is not what we keep, it's what we give, what we give.